Recently, there's been some talk about what might have been with respect to Quentin Tarantino's Star Trek film, which I'm really glad we never got. I mean, his particular brand of filmmaking would just not have been suitable for Star Trek, in my opinion. But that's not to say that Kurtzman Trek has been a whole barrel of hope and joy either. I don't need to remind you of how dark Star Trek Discovery was when it started, or how bleak and depressing Star Trek Picard was in its first season. There's very few decent ideas that have been floated in recent years that have really felt like worthy additions to the franchise. Alex Kurtzman wanted a Section 31 TV series, need I remind you, which of course no fan ever wanted. What he ended up giving us was the worst addition to the franchise in the form of a deplorable TV movie. Possibly the single worst 95 minutes in Star Trek history. Do you know, that actually has a 22% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes and just 16% from audiences. At last, nice to see some unity there with respect to critics and audiences for a change. Given the near universal disdain for that film, you'd have thought someone at Paramount or CBS would have stepped in and said, "Look, Alex, this can't happen again. You just produced an objectively terrible TV movie. What steps are going to be taken to make sure this kind of negative audience and critic reaction never happens again?" But of course, that's me being silly. That would never happen. There appears to be zero accountability for the low-quality garbage that passes for Star Trek under Secret Hideout, and clearly no one cares about the quality of the product, the quality of the storytelling. For several years now, it's felt like Star Trek is being made for people who don't really watch Star Trek, or maybe it's even being made for an audience that doesn't exist. Anyway, more on my thoughts on Star Trek's future right after this. But first, a quick reminder to pick up a copy of my debut sci-fi novel, Deus Ex Machina, a Cody Stockton mystery, available from the links below in ebook, paperback, and audiobook formats. It's Las Vegas 2045. Detective Cody Stockton is investigating the mysterious death of a whistleblower at a major tech giant and soon uncovers murder, a trail that leads to a major global conspiracy involving a deadly satanic cult and an authoritarian artificial intelligence with the desire to enslave humanity. But what has all this got to do with the sudden emergence of a man with supernatural powers who claims to be the son of God? Stockton finds himself in a race to stop Armageddon and caught in a battle between God and the machine. It's a story packed with twists, turns, and an interesting revelation for our main character. Pick up a copy of Deus Ex Machina from the links below in ebook, audiobook, and paperback versions. Okay, so welcome back. Now, I've already discussed my thoughts on the upcoming Star Trek Starfleet Academy TV series. By the way, the trailer now has 7,400 likes to 35,000 dislikes at the time of making this video, so not exactly widespread approval from the fan base there. Even after the mediocrity of Discovery's first couple of seasons, part of me still wanted to give the benefit of the doubt to Star Trek Picard before it aired. I liked the look of the trailer at the time, but hopes for that show being any good were dashed by episode 2. The third season may have been a vast improvement, but that was just one season out of several shows produced by Secret Hideout. 5 seasons of Discovery, 3 seasons so far of Strange New Worlds, and 2 poor seasons of Picard out of 3. That's 1 decent season out of 11. Not exactly a great track record there. Now, when it comes to the animated shows, Lower Decks and Prodigy, I do acknowledge those shows have dedicated followings, and that Lower Decks was probably the best show made under Secret Hideout. But I just couldn't take to a self-aware comedy. It's just not something that I think Star Trek should be. And the visual design of Prodigy, which feels like a mix of Guardians of the Galaxy meets Monsters, Inc., it always just bugged me. So I couldn't take to that show either. But that's just me. I know that some of you really love it, and if that's your thing, then by all means. So with all of that said, how could I possibly be optimistic for Star Trek Starfleet Academy when the Secret Hideout track record with respect to Star Trek is so poor? There is talk of another Kelvin timeline movie also, although that talk has been going on for many years. And that doesn't fill me with an awful lot of hope either, considering the Kelvin timeline movies were the films that utterly transformed the franchise into mindless, action-oriented fluff. I mean, they were about as un-Star Trek as it gets. The President Archer series idea that's been proposed by Mike Sussman could be good on paper. I just hope that it has the writing talent behind it to make it great. What any new Star Trek series needs is an entirely new creative team than the Secret Hideout teams. We need showrunners, producers, and writers who thoroughly understand and love Star Trek and who really appreciate what worked in the past and why. The third season of Strange New Worlds has seen a young James T. Kirk, played by Paul Wesley, at last take the command chair of the Enterprise in one particular episode. And there is a new proposed future series, which would be a sequel to Strange New Worlds, a follow-up series based on Captain Kirk, which of course would basically be a remake of the original series. So this would be the second remake of the original series, including the Kelvin timeline films. The reason why discussion of Star Trek's future has come into focus in recent weeks is because of the completion of the Skydance Paramount merger, which has some fans hopeful that this will bring about the end of the reign of Secret Hideout as custodians of the Trek franchise, and hopefully something new. While it's possible Secret Hideout's deal may end, or it could be extended for a few more years, what's just as important is, I think, the oversight from the higher-ups at Skydance and Paramount with respect to having much greater understanding of why Star Trek has been failing for a number of years and what needs to change. Rick Berman was a bit of a controversial figure during the 1990s and early 2000s because some people felt he was too conservative in terms of storytelling, and that his approach sometimes held Star Trek Voyager back from being something truly spectacular, even though it was still a good show in its own right. But Berman's conservatism was born out of a desire to maintain the DNA of what made Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek work, and credit to Berman, he certainly accomplished that. He kept Star Trek true to what it was supposed to be and maintained a consistent visual and thematic language and continuity across the various TV shows and films he produced. That's the kind of person you need to have when managing a franchise as big and complex as Star Trek. Anyway, I'll be sure to keep you updated about any news and developments about the future of the franchise as it unfolds. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell to be notified of future updates as well. Hit that like button, share the video out there. Take care, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.